So we're planting this ayahuasca vine, which is a capybanastera, is the scientific name of this Amazonian plant. This particular variety of ayahuasca, the strain, the name of this particular strain is called cielo, means sky. So we're planting this one, creating a nice little hole here. You can tell immediately the soil conditions are so good. You can see the worms just popping out of the soil. Good indicator of the soil. Probably two types of soil. If you look at the two colorations there, one is darker than the other. I've hit one of the roots right here, so this is my edge, and I've hit the root of the tree, so I'm making this hole really from that point outward, creating enough of a big hole just to make a nice little wiggle room for the root system to come out of the plant once we remove the bag. Soil's very wet, and it makes it harder to really kind of step into it. The ayahuasca vine is one of two ingredients that are typically used for brewing ayahuasca. This is the main one, which is the one that causes the MAO inhibitors in the bodies to really absorb and process the DMT, the dimethyltryptamine, that's already existent within your pineal gland. One does not work without the other. It is said that ayahuasca alone in and of itself has its somewhat of certain therapeutic properties, but none of the psychoactive, psychedelic aspect is really present until you mix it with one that contains, in this case, that contains DMT, and that is the chacruna. The chacruna plant comes from it's from the same family of the coffee plant. It's a shrub, and it's within that leaf itself, that it contains its DMT properties, which essentially gives the visual part of the medicine experience. This is what I kind of like to mention, where we're really absorbing all of the information of this living being called Earth. We like to call her Mother Earth. It's a living being. Everything is interconnected within its inner being. As above, so below. And when this plant, the vine, and the chacruna, the root system is well penetrated within Earth, well, it collects that information from Mother Earth. It's turned into a brew, which is then brewed for days, often in the jungle under the fire, until it's a reduction. And it's reduced down to a point where it becomes the brew that is typically served within an ayahuasca ceremony. And what we're doing here with this particular vine is we've chosen a rather interesting spot. We want the vine to absorb as much light as it can, so we're really trying to avoid a non-shady area. So there's kind of a little hill knob here within this property, and then once we plant the vine, we're gonna come back later. We're gonna run a string, a rope line that's gonna connect it to these two trees that are directly across the plant. So essentially, these two trees will act as the ability to wind and lace itself there. They will be co-living together, coexisting with one another. So the more sunlight the plant gets from the base, then the faster it'll grow. And sometimes you want to have a vine that has been on the ground. It's relative depending on the variety, the conditions, etc. But I'd like to say about 7 years is probably the most optimal time you want to harvest the vine itself. And then the vine can really just grow for a very long time. There's some deep plants in the Amazon that have been there for decades, if not even hundreds of years. There's a lot of different varieties of ayahuasca beyond the Quechuan astera. So this plant, we had it in our nursery, and we really got it from a cutting, which is really just another part of the branch of the mother tree itself, of the mother vine, I'm sorry, itself. And it's where we grabbed that cutting and put it into this bag, and we nurtured it, put it in the nursery, and we placed it there in the nursery until it got into a mature state now that allows us to really plant it as we're doing it now. I mean, there's really nothing to all of this, right? Trial and error is the best lesson you can have, because it allows you to start right away rather than trying to get all educated and trying to be perfect about things. When it comes to working with Mother Earth, it's so intuitive. It'll just teach you, but you got to start. And this here is a good start. You can see the combination of the two types of soils in here. This vine will do really well, like under the conditions that I see here where it's at. We could potentially even see harvest take place maybe after year 4. So, Quechuan astera and the chacruna leaves. Chacruna, of course, as a shrub, can grow tremendously. You need a lot of chacruna leaves, a lot of kilos and sacks of those. And then, of course, every brew is different depending on the tribe and depending on the recipe, if you'd like to call it that. Has a little bit of its difference depending on where it's at, what tribe it's from. Okay, folks, this is Ayahuasca Quechuan astera. Very grateful for this plant. What an opportunity to really gain from her knowledge and wisdom and help our humanity that it's in so much need. Thank you very much, everyone.